Welcome to Our Culture to the World. Come with me and meet new people and learn from their experiences in this episode of Our Culture to the World. My guest today is Leisel Whitlock Petersen. So, Leisel, what I'd like to invite you to do, first of all, I'm welcoming you to Our Culture to the World, and I'd like to invite you to tell our guests about you. Who is Leisel? What do you do? Where do you live? What are some of your interests? Anything that you would like to share with us?
Anything. Well, first of all, thank you for having me. This is really an honor. I am so glad to be here. My name is Leisel Whitlock Petersen, and I am the uh, owner and founder, I guess, of you could call me, of Sainte Sophie Creole Confections. Um, I am, and we'll talk about, I'm sure we'll get into that. I am a mom and I am of Louisiana Creole heritage and an artist, spent many years working in nonprofits. Currently, I live in San Leandro, which is in the San Francisco Bay Area. But my roots are in Louisiana. And fun fact, I was actually born in San Francisco.
Um,
Um, and my mother, being the good Roman Catholic that she is, would not put a new baby on a plane until I was baptized. So I was born in San Francisco and baptized, and soon thereafter on a plane
to
back
Louisiana.
to Louisiana, where I stayed until we moved later on. I was a senior in high school. We moved to Atlanta, or Atlanta, Georgia, or Decatur, rather, Georgia. Stayed in Atlanta for 17 years or so, and then moved to New York City, and from New York City, moved to Chicago. Was there for a number of years, and from Chicago, um, moved back, moved to the Bay Area,
Mhm.
uh, where I had my children who are actually born probably less than a mile away from where I was born. Uh,
Okay.
I know, full circle, right? And so here I am, in the Bay Area. Yeah.
Good. Well, so happy to meet you, Lisa. And you mentioned Saint Sophie, and I love your background there. Yes, beautiful. And so, and before we get into Saint Sophie, though, before you mentioned Creole, so
Yes.
maybe we could start there. So,
Wait.
tell us about Creole in the Louisiana context. What does that really mean?
In the it's so it I would say it has a meaning in a contemporary context, and which is I would say different from the historical context. Um, there is Creole 2025 or the Creole post Louisiana Purchase, as we call it, like 1803 and pre-Louisiana Purchase. So, the Creole people, specifically Louisiana Creole people, Louisiana Creole is a culture that is derived from a mix of, I would say, Western European, predominantly. You think French, Spanish, especially in Louisiana, French, Western African, and also with heavy indigenous influence. It is a culture that transcends what we think of as racial categories. So you could be white and be Creole. You could have been black or of 100% African descent and been Creole, born in Louisiana, speaking French or speaking Kouri, which is the Louisiana Creole language. Or you could have been of mixed race heritage. You could have been formerly enslaved or currently enslaved, and you could have been a free person of color. So, and you could have been all of these things, right? And or rather, you could find all of these things within one family kinship group. So, that it was something that was a way of being, or the way the culture developed and was lived, and I would say, but that was pre the 1803 transition from being a French colony, and at one time was a Spanish colony, right? From being that type of colony to being part of the United States, where you have a Protestant Anglo perspective and influence and dominance that then came down, which changed a lot of the way that people lived. Um, so, whereas I would say, you had a lot of Creole language newspapers and people spoke primarily either Caribbean French or both. Like my grandmother's family, my grandmother spoke both French and Creole. Um, there was an outlawing or and discouragement of that you'll see in the what is it the late 1800s, early 1900s, where you see this shift that starts to happen, where uh, now you have people speaking more English and then not passing along that
Right.
language in their families, which is what my grandmother and her siblings were the last to speak the language fluently as their primary, as their first learn. Remember, they did not learn English until they were young teenagers. And I probably, if I went back through the records, I'd probably find that it's very aligned with the time where in the state it was now English is the language of the state and it's not, you have to learn English. It probably aligns with that in some way. So that shift started to happen, and that's why you will, if you go down into Louisiana, you do meet people who are Creole heritage, but who may not speak the language. Luckily, there's still some enclaves that do, um, but unfortunately I'm not from one of them. Uh, yeah.
Mhm.
So
So now in the more modern context,
I
you have that heritage,
yeah.
but how do people live that their Creoleness?
Their
Yeah,
Creoleness.
yeah.
I find that now in the modern context, I find that Creole is more racialized. When people hear Creole or when you think Creole Louisiana, they automatically think Black, African American, as if, being Creole is specific to being so, which many of us are. I consider myself to be African American. But at the same time, it's not something that I would say is, it's not exclusive to us. The contemporary understanding of it, that's what it's thought of. So that's a change. You see a shift, and with that, you'd see people who may have been of Creole heritage, but during when segregation set in, you see people in families that parted, where some went on to live in a white world, and may have divorced themselves from the idea of being Creole because now Creole was seen as. Um, and that's not something that you want to be a part of when you're in the South at that time, and people who made consciously made that decision to do that. Um, so you have both sides of it. Which is, it's unfortunate that people then lose that family
Right.
connection and lose that connection to their history.
Exactly.
Um, so, and we have a contemporary example of that with our newest pope.
Oh, yes, I've read about
Right.
that.
And
Yes.
even though the conversation, I don't consider him to be, but I do consider him to have Creole heritage. And just because he
Mhm.
was not raised in the culture, he does not have an affinity or an understanding, or it seems an interest in the culture, which is fine. He was not, this is something new to him. And and at the same time, even right now, the way I described it, somebody may have a different description of it as well. I think what I like to think of when I think of the culture is how expansive it is. It's going to be an ever-changing definition.
Mhm.
Um, and as we, I think, also learn more about the foundation of our culture, which people are learning new things all the time. I think definitions and understandings of it will change. There is a scholar, Christophe Landry, who does a really, really great work in this. area. This is his field
Mhm.
of expertise. And if anyone is interested in learning really more about Louisiana Creole, and he speaks the language, and where the center of the Louisiana Creole world is, and it's not New Orleans, and people always think Creole, they think New Orleans, which is, my hometown-ish. I would say I'm from New Orleans and I'm from Pointe-Lahache, Louisiana, which is like 45 minutes south of New Orleans. There's Creole enclaves in these areas, but you really need to go to areas of southeast Louisiana to for larger, I think, and probably maybe deeper roots also isn't the right word, but yeah, I think of it as deeper roots because you still have a great deal of people who do speak Kuhivini
Okay.
there.
Good.
Yeah.
Yes, yes. Thank you so much. As you said, different people may have different ways of defining it. And I'm glad of the way you explained it because
When you ask me those questions, it's really interesting because when you grow up surrounded by something, you don't realize that other people don't know what it is.
Mhm.
And sometimes you don't take the time to even think about how do I put language to this?
Yes,
Because
I
you
mhm.
just are,
Right, right. Mhm.
right?
So Lisa shared this graphic with me that shows the emergence and divergence of the Creole identity in Louisiana. And it goes from the colonial period in 17th century right down to our time in the 21st century. So we see all the mixing of the European, the indigenous, the African, all those cultures coming together.
It's the mixing. And so, I think for me, that's one of the interesting things. And in preparation for our conversation today, I actually came upon something that I was like, this really to me, um, this statement kind of it really encapsulates how I thought about Creole, but this was about Creole languages, right? This one definition really stood out to me, and it said that Creole language is a stable form of contact language that develops from the process of different languages
In context.
mixing into a new form.
Right.
And that's how I started to think of Creole people, of the diaspora. We are contact cultures,
Mhm.
right? That developed from the process of different cultures mixing into a new stable form. Like so Creole language, a new stable form of contact language is Creole people. It's like we're a new form, a stable form of contact culture.
Right, right. I love that.
Yeah.
And so now we're talking about, we've kind of explored a little in quite a bit of detail
Yes.
Creole. Now let's talk about Saint Sophie
Mhm.
because you have Saint Sophie Creole Confections.
Yes.
And why did you start this business? Tell us a little bit about the business and why did you start it?
So I started it, and we went from where it started and where it evolved is different places. So I started it as with the idea that I was going to that the company would be making ready-made pralines based upon my specific family recipe, which is had, I noticed it was really different from the pralines that I've seen in the market, et cetera. And it was, yeah, I always thought it was wonderful, and my kids loved it, and really great feedback on it. And what I discovered when I was in this process of getting it out there was these conversations coming up about, what is Creole? I don't really know what that is. And then having to explain it and realize it was a huge education piece. And it also, at the same time, hit my own bias head on, which was speaking about this as if Louisiana is the center of the Creole world,
Mhm.
or rather, the only when I was speaking with a young woman, my father's Creole, but we don't make these. And then he's Haitian. Oh, he's from Haiti. Well, we're Creole too, right? And so that really began this process of me really discovering just how vast the Creole diaspora is. and varied.
Mhm.
Um, and differently named and with these different perspectives on who they are as Creole in their culture. And it was just so wonderful and beautiful. But at the same time, I found some through like these threads that through lines through all of our different cultures. And definitely it was that contact piece. You know, we were definitely peoples that were formed out of contact,
Right. Mhm.
um, and violent contact,
Mhm.
frankly, and people who were resilient and who created something new out of this contact, and in new places. Um, and I thought those that recognition was valuable, and I thought those stories were interesting and valuable to tell. Um, so I started this process of discovery, and what I realized is that I really wanted to share that, and not just say, oh, we're going to provide pralines. No. Because another piece is like the cooking is so sensorial and it is a part of, and how can I provide just the end product when really it's really about the making? Because when I started to think about, well, why would you want to make this? What is it about it? It really was this connection to this beautiful woman who I learned it from, not from her writing it down, but from experiencing that at her side while, peeking over the pot, watching her make it with my cousin who was there in the process before, because we had to crack the pecans and then clean them so she could use them in the pralines. And as I was speaking to different people, and their experiences with their specific Creole cultures, a lot of the things were the same. And as I was making the mixes and the kits and learning about different confections from different places, and sharing it with people, they had the similar reaction was, oh, this reminds me of.
Mhm.
And this reminds me of when I was a kid. This reminds me of my grandfather. This reminds me of the woman who used to sell candy out of her house in the neighborhood, or the woman on the street who would sell out of a basket. It reminded them of home, especially people who were away from their cultures.
Mhm.
And all of us, and that was another reason when I started making pearlies, I wanted to make sure that I'm raising my children not within my culture. I wanted to make sure that they had something of it and that I shared something of it with them. And that was something that was very common with people when I talk to them. They're like, oh, this is something, I can share this and make this with my kids, and we can talk about me growing up in Jamaica. Or there are other people that I can explore this and learn about this, even if I can enjoy this, even if I'm not
Oh,
of that
good.
culture.
Mhm. Yes.
Um, and I loved seeing it because I just had this reaction today from someone from Cuba. It's that look that rises on their face. Oh, I remember. And she told me about her grandmother in Cuba and how she would lower the basket down, with the money in it. And the person, I think he was a gentleman who made pasteles, and he would put them in the basket, take the money, and she
Mhm.
pulled them
Mhm.
back up. That are the
Mhm.
conversations that I'm having. And I think especially now when I see people feeling more and more disconnected, this is an opportunity, um, as I would, a, a force against that, is a push back against that disconnection. Um, yeah.
Let's talk about, I know when you started first, you started making the treats. So maybe we could talk about some of the treats you started making, and then I know you've now shifted away to the kits. So let's talk a bit about what are some of the treats that you started making and offering for sale, and then the reason you kind of touched on it a little bit, but explore a little bit more the reason for shifting away from actually selling the made candy, the end product, to offering the kits
It's
to your customers.
Yeah, so some of the things that I started making was tamarind balls,
Mhm.
which in my cult in Louisiana culture, it's not something that is common, or I don't think I'd even heard of it. So that's something we make, but it's something extremely common across the Caribbean
Mhm.
and then the Philippines
Mhm.
and in Central America and and in South America. Very,
Mhm.
Mexico, they make a tamarind candy. So it's something that's really common there. So I started making that. And those are, and so because, some of these, they might have different names as you find them in different countries.
Mhm.
I looked at recipes and I picked one specific place for an inspiration. So, example, for the tamarind balls, the mix that is in the kit um, also has a spice, a heat element, peppery in it
Right.
because in uh, some like Trinidad and Tobago, they put
Right.
heat
In
in it.
Guyana too, we have
Oh,
pepper. Yes.
right.
Yeah.
In the Philippines, when I spoke, she said, "Oh, we use salt." I'd never heard of that. We roll it in salt.
Mhm.
Um, but I wanted to pick one location for each
Mhm.
to explore, knowing that it may have,
Yes. Mhm.
connections to other areas. So it was the tamarind balls, and then it was it's a coconut. I call it Trappy Creole is the name we use for Sainte Sophie, but it is a coconut
Pineapple.
pineapple
Right.
lime candy,
Mhm.
and it is delicious.
Mhm.
And
Right.
I'd never been a coconut fan, and I had never had that combination in a candy before. And the reason I say inspired by is because, I do a little shifting to the recipe.
Mhm.
And for a number of different reasons. One, I wanted to make sure the kits are as shelf stable as possible.
Mhm.
So in, some of the recipes that I use, they may call for, say, coconut milk. I'm not going to put liquid coconut milk in the package, but I do coconut powder. Um, and so and then also looking at what the sugars are, and discovering there's so many different types. And it's based on what tastes good to me, and it's also based on feedback. So that's like one of the things that I did with the Haitian inspired coconut candy is I substitute the type of sugar, which makes it a much more chewy type. Um, so, those are the types of shifts that I made. And then I'm working on a few others. So right now we have four that are, I would say, ready to go. Four different types. I just was doing some experimentames with a sugar cake. Um,
Right. Oh, I saw that one on
candy.
your Instagram. Yes. Yeah, I mean, interesting. Yeah, tell us about that.
Yeah, which, and that's why I always say inspired, because also that's, saying something is authentic, you're always going to have, well, that's not how we make it there, because I know I do that. That's not how we make it, and it isn't. And so I was, working with this sugar cake recipe, and I put it in a cookie. I made some impromptu. I pulled out some rolled oats and made some granola.
Mhm.
And discovering it that I liked it better as sugar cake granola than I liked it as the actual candy.
Mhm.
Um, I actually did a taste test between coffee liqueur and rum and to see because the way I made it and the sugars I made it, it soaks in. So you
Mhm.
can pour a little liqueur over it and soak it in and see which one I liked best. And use it in different ways. The same
Mhm.
thing with the tamarind ball, and to use it, with a spicy martini. So that's this experimentation is also a part of it for me.
Mhm.
And I think probably, a big reason why I did shift to doing the kits, I get to really experiment with. And it also gives anyone who uses it the opportunity to do what a lot of us do, which is create our own. You know, we may have these recipes that we were given, and that was handed down to us. But there's sometimes there's these slight variations that we decide to make. My grandmother's gumbo is not the same as my stepfather's gumbo. Um, because you have the freedom to make those choices, and I wanted people to experience that as well, not just have something handed to them as this example of what this is. Um, and so they can make their own version of it. Um, was something that I was that was important.
Right. So tell me, so you provide the kits, so we can go onto your website, we can buy the kits, and so you're gonna have, your products in the kit
Mhm.
with your recipe card. What else is in the kit to help us to really get understand the cultural aspect of your product?
Some information about the specific culture that served as the inspiration
Mhm.
for the particular ingredients
Mhm.
that are in our kit. So if it's going to be the pralines, the no gas pralines, I'm going to tell you that, the ingredients that are included in this kit were inspired by my own family recipe. Um, and stories about that, which is something that I also want to do right now. It is going to be just the straight recipes because um, if this is a kit that's from a Creole culture that's different from my own, um, I would like to have feedback from a person who is from that culture. I don't want to tell their story.
Okay. Mhm.
So, until I get partners who are willing to participate and contribute their own stories to something like that, it is going to be the recipe. And maybe it's my story of how I discovered it. But I would love eventually for this to go in a direction where the directions are sensorial. And that's something that's going to be, if you buy a kit, you'll get this QR code um, where you'll see me making the item. So you can then, look at that and say, oh, this is how she did it. And in the video, you'll hear me talking about listening for a certain sound. You'll hear me talking about as I'm stirring it, what I'm feeling, the
Guidance.
smell,
Mhm.
right? And depending on what I do, sometimes you may see me mess up. I may burn something, like,
Mhm.
right? And that may be like an outtake. I may have to do it again. Um, because that's all a part of it.
Mhm.
Sometimes that happens. And sometimes that happens and you discover something that's totally new. Overcooked one of the praline candies one time and I was like, let me add more milk to it. And as I did, it wound up being this caramel sauce. And my husband put additional, like a powdered sugar in it and made frosting from it, from
Oh.
a cake that he baked. I
Mhm.
know, I was like, oh, I'm gonna throw this away. He's like, I think in our house, me throwing away anything sugar-based is a crime in his eyes. And so, so he's like, no, you're not. And he took it and he made a frosting for a cake. And so, um, that type of thing, I think is
Oh, I like that. I like that idea. Please, I hope you're able to get into that soon, where we could, as you said, scan the QR code and then we have the video and yeah, that sense, and then you have all the senses involved there. That's beautiful.
Yeah, because that's what, it was that doesn't smell right. Right? There's the feel. After you've been doing things, you're like, it should feel like this at this point, and now it's done. As my mom, how do I know it's done? It's done when it's done. It's done when it feels a certain way, when it pulls a certain way, when can you smell it now? Can you smell the different ingredients combining into a certain
Mhm.
fragrance? Or this is when it smells, how it smells when it's burning and you need to stop. Um, I think all of those are part. for me are part of the experience of doing it, that I want to share. We're going to be doing some interviews with people, and we're going to be making things from their culture as well. And so that'll be a part of it. Um, Not now, but further on down the road, and maybe just for specialized kits, music from that area. Either contemporary or folk or both, you know. I'm open.
Good.
Um, I think this is about exploration in a way where you discover and honor um, all the different cultures within, under the umbrella of the Creole diaspora.
Right. And so what about what kind of feedback have you received from your customers? For people who have bought the actual products and then now the kits. Oh.
So the we are set to launch right now. It's in pre-sale.
Oh.
We are set to launch in October
Mhm.
for Creole Heritage Month. But I sold some praline kits and some pralines, and the feedback I got, some other things. The feedback I got from the kit was, "Is this vegan?" I was like, "No, the recipe isn't to be vegan, but you can make it vegan. I'm gonna try it. I'm trying to make it vegan."
Mhm.
Like they wanted to try and make it something that was, that didn't
Mhm.
have the butter
Mhm.
and the milk.
Mhm.
So they appreciate it being able to take just the mix in their home and being able to make that for themselves. The feedback from the actual ready-made pralines was it had a complex flavor profile. It's not just straight sweet.
Mhm.
They could taste the different things that were in it. And it did taste different from the pralines that they're really used to. Um, Positive on that. But I say by far, I think the two things that people have been enjoying most are the tamarind balls
Mhm.
and the coconuts, lime, pineapple, which is
Tropical, what do you call it? The tropical something.
Trumpy Creole is what I call
Tropical.
it.
And you don't call the tamarind balls, you don't call them tamarind balls. You
And
call them,
brandish,
right, you say
and
and brandish,
brandish.
yes, you call it something.
So that, Trinities won't come after me and tell me this is not how we make it in Trinidad. So yeah, so let me give it its own name. And that was part of the feedback that I got from somebody who, when she tried it, she's like, this is really good. This is not how we would make it in Jamaica.
But it's different, right? It's
Right? She's like, I wouldn't call it Jamaican. I wouldn't call it. She's like, I would give it your own name.
right. And
Right.
as you
Because
said, inspired by,
inspired by,
inspired by.
because
So,
people will automatically go, nope, this isn't. And you're right, it's not, but it is inspired by. So feedback has been positive. One of the things that's got me working on something different is that the question is, do you have anything that is sugar free?
candy. Oh, so it means using some kind of substitute.
Yes, and so that is tough, right? Because I'm not using some lab created
Mhm.
blah blah blah. I'm not doing it. But there are some natural
Sweet.
sugar natural sweeteners, right? I'm playing around with that as well.
Mhm.
Um, but it has to the taste has to be right. I mean, I did use something the other week. I think it's derived from the sweet potato or the yuca. I can't remember which. And it was not a horrible taste. Sugar is special, I think. It's just, it's not going to be sugar,
Right.
but it can still taste good. So
Right. Just have to work with it. Just experiment.
I'm working with it.
Yes, yes.
And that's another thing. So with the kits that I provide, the sugar is separate. The sugar is in there, but it's not a part of the mix
Mm.
of flavors. And so if someone wants to say, "Oh, I don't want to use brown sugar. I want to use monk fruit." They can make that choice. Um, So, it's an option for people who are more sugar sensitive.
Right, right. Yes, yes. So I see, you really getting into moving Saint Sophie forward and
Yeah.
eventually expanding in all kinds of different areas. Sounds so interesting. And I know, there were some other things I wanted to ask you that
Mhm.
we've kind of covered I don't have to go through the whole list. But so tell me, okay, so now you working on the kits. They're supposed to be, people can pre-order and
Mhm.
to go out beginning October.
Yeah.
And how do you see Saint Sophie Creole Confections going forward, the future of, you mentioned some things before, some ideas that you have, but maybe you could share
I
some more.
One of the things I really want to do is a cookbook anthology with um, different recipes and also stories from the diaspora. Um, but that's certainly a collaborative project. Um, but I would love to do. Um, do interviews, cooking interviews with people, so I can hear their stories and also that it comes becomes an archive um, for the different communities, um, because feel like stories not told, it's easy to forget who we are, um, and I don't want to see that happen. I mean, I know what that feels like, right? I know what that feels like not to have that part of my language anymore, um, to share with my children. Um, but this we can still do. I mean, luckily there are people who are teaching Corivini. And I know there's a young woman, I can't remember which island she's from. She's also teaching their Creole language. So there's definitely efforts underway to do that. And so that's also part of this. What I want to do is connect the people who are doing that work as well.
Mhm.
Um, yeah.
Yeah, and the preservation of culture is very important. And that's what you're actually exploring in what you do. And in your plans for the future, we could see that, that's very much a part of what you hope to achieve, with the preserving the stories and having them there, the archive in with this cookbook and stories and so on. So
Yeah, it is. And I think that's another reason why we do kits instead of ready-made, is because I think there's something very, very magical, very spell casting about cooking. Um, and I think it engages people in a way that just eating someone else's creation won't do.
mhm,
Um, I think the experience will last a lot longer than just opening a pack and eating candy.
yeah,
Like there's,
yes, that's so true. When you when you open it and you eat it, and that's it. But then if you're part of the process and with the feels and the smells, all this, and yes, it is, and those memories that come back. Yeah.
um, yeah, and I think that I think that hits the soul.
Mhm. Yes,
And
and even if you aren't actually making it, you experience some aspect of the production, just,
yeah, and then sharing them with other people and your friends and your family. Because at this point, I do not make those pineapple lime coconut candies when I'm by myself or when I don't have a lot of people, because I will eat the whole thing. Like, I'm not doing that anymore. I need lots of people so that
I have to
More
buy
sweet
one
is,
of those kits because when I saw it at first, I was like, this kind of looks like sugar cake, but then it has pineapple and it has something else. It's not just the coconut. So, so I gotta get one
yeah.
of those
So,
kits.
and that's, one in one place, something is called, sugar cake, and it's in this particular Creole culture, they put bay leaf in it, and they'll put this, and another place it's called a coconut drop, and they'll make it in with like in Jamaica, it's a coconut drop, and they make it with this, but not with the bay leaf, and then here they make it, and it's, some of the very same like, essential ingredients are the same with these variations.
Right, yes. And I like the way you varied and you allow us to, as we explore and we can create with what
Yes.
you have given us. You're giving us, some raw material.
Yes,
We
raw
can
material and
create,
some,
yeah. Mhm.
broad guidelines and just go at it.
Mhm.
And also they're not hard. Like I'm not a baker of like cakes, and 'cause I find that it's too much for me. Like I like it simple, I like it fast. And that was something that, I was always in the front of mind when I put a kit together. How easy is this for someone to pull together and make themselves?
Mhm.
Um, so everything is designed to really be as easy as possible.
Good. I like that. Easy. I like
Yeah.
easy.
Yeah. You don't have to wait, and make sure that rises for only 12.5 minutes. And
Mhm.
nope, none of that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So, Lisa, thank you so much. I really enjoyed talking with you about Saint Sophie, about you, Lisa, about Saint Sophie. I know this is, it's something it's a company that's growing, So
Yeah.
looking forward to it growing some more and evolving some more. And so I'm gonna encourage the viewers, please. Um, Visit her website, saintsophie.com, and she's on Instagram as well, Saint Sophie Candy. So you can see some of the kits, what the kits that are there, pre-order, order, and give feedback.
Yes.
Feedback is good, and then we can all become part of the community where we
Feedback
help
is,
to create the archive and preserve the culture, which is what,
yeah.
yeah. Mhm.
Yeah. Pictures of people making it with their kids and feedback from the, that, one of my kids, he's like, he ate one thing and his eyes rolled back like, oh, this is so good. Like that.
Yes, yes, that kind of feedback would be good.
Kind of feedback is great.
Of course, and we have to, as you say, preserve the culture. Our Creole cultures are so they're diverse, but then there's so much that is similar, so much that is the same, and that we can draw on, and then move forward. So, thank you again, Liesel, for making the time for sharing with us, and to the viewers, thank you for watching. Thank you for being with us, and we continue to explore more about cultures in our next episode of Our Culture to the World.